The hip-hop world is erupting tonight because Jim Jones just got called out by some of the biggest names in rap. And the fallout is insane. What started as a few subtle shots from industry veterans has now exploded into a full-scale reckoning. Nas, 50 Cent, Camron, Fat Joe, and even Jadakiss have all broken their silence. And they're not just clowning Jim. They're exposing him, from allegedly faking stories about street credibility, to taking credit for deals and hits he never earned, to stirring fake beefs just to stay relevant. These hip-hop legends are dragging Jim Jones like never before. And the craziest part, they've got proof. Screenshots, audio clips, old interviews, deleted tweets. Everything. It started with one comment from S that lit the match, a cryptic but lethal line during a recent radio appearance. Some people been rewriting history too long. That Harlem energy ain't what it used to be. The internet caught it immediately. Fans knew exactly who he meant. Within hours, 50 Cent jumped in with his trademark grin and an Instagram caption that simply said, "Told y'all Jimmy was capping years ago." The streets don't forget. Now the entire industry is turning on Jim, and as one insider just leaked, the so-called Harlem Capo has been lying about more than anyone ever imagined. This isn't just a beef, it's an expose. So buckle up, because when hip-hop legends unite to call out a fraud, it means the game is about to change forever. For over 2 decades, Jim Jones has crafted an image that's part street legend, part business mogul, and part survivor. He's worn every crown Harlem could give him: rapper, hustler, trendsetter, mentor. But beneath that hard-earned legacy, cracks have been forming for years. Now, those cracks have split open. And the truth about what really fueled Jim's come up and who helped build it is spilling out in the ugliest way imaginable. To understand the firestorm Jim's facing today, you have to go back, way back, to the early 2000s. This was the golden era of New York rap, when every borough had its champion. Queens had 50 Cent, Brooklyn had Jay-Z, and Harlem had Dipset, Camron, Joel Santana, and Jim Jones. Jim was the muscle behind the style, the one yelling ad-libs in the background, the loyal soldier who slowly transformed himself into a frontman. He branded himself as Capo, the leader of Harlem's new wave. But according to insiders, and now, according to some of hip-hop's biggest names, the version of Jim's story you've all heard might be more fiction than fact. Because, according to Nas, Camron, and even Fat Joe, Jim didn't just climb his way up, he rewrote history on his way there. The first bomb dropped when Nas appeared on the Bridge podcast, talking about the evolution of New York hip-hop. Out of nowhere, Nas said, "A lot of cats came up off stories they didn't live. You can't keep building empires on fairy tales." Everyone in the room froze. The host tried to pivot, but Nas wasn't done. He added, almost casually, "Some of them from Harlem too." Within minutes, social media lit up. Harlem was trending. Every fan knew who he meant, and before the smoke even cleared, Camron added fuel to the fire. On an episode of his show, It Is What It Is, he laughed while reading Nas's quote on air. He didn't name Jim directly, but his grin said everything. "Nas talking 'bout certain dudes. I know exactly who he mean. Some people been playing Capo when they was really the intern." The crowd went crazy. Cam and Jim have a long, complicated history. Friends, brothers, enemies, and sometimes both in the same week. But this time, it wasn't playful shade. It was personal. The internet started digging. Clips resurfaced of Jim claiming he helped start certain Harlem trends, that he brought diplomacy to New York rap, and that he put pressure on Queens. Fans began comparing his interviews to old footage and receipts, and what they found was inconsistent. Jim had said for years that he was one of the first to sign certain artists, that he funded early Dipset projects. and that he put people on. But as one insider told the source, that man been taking credit for stuff Cam and others did since day one. The OGs just got tired of the rewriting. Then came 50 Cent, who never misses a chance to stir the pot. He posted a throwback photo of himself, Nas, and Camron, with the caption, "Real ones in the room. No fabrication. No self-made fairy tales." Fans flooded the comments. Is he talking about Jim again? 50 replied with 3 laughing emojis and the words, "If the hat fits." That's when the dominoes really began to fall. Fat Joe went live on Instagram, telling a story from 2005 that left fans stunned. According to him, Jim Jones once showed up to a Bronx event, claiming he was good with everybody. But when things got tense, it wasn't Jim who held his ground. It was Fat Joe who stepped in to save him. Jimmy know what it is. I respect him, but the cap gotta stop. I was there when he almost got caught up. I had to tell dudes, nah, he with me. That clip alone got over 4 million views in 2 hours, but the most brutal call-out came from Jadakiss. Known for being one of the most respected lyricists in New York, he didn't mince words. During an interview with Power 105, he said, "When you real, you don't gotta keep reminding people. Some of these cats think saying Harlem every 5 seconds makes M official. It don't." When asked who he meant, Jadakiss just smiled and said, "The streets already know." By now, the pattern was undeniable. One by one, every New York heavyweight who'd shared history with Jim was turning their back, or at least, pulling the mask off. Even Camron's co-host, Maze, who famously left the church and returned to hip-hop, hinted that there were missing chapters in Jim's story. Everybody been hearing one version for years, but the people who really there, they know who moved the needle. The internet exploded. Hashtag Jim Jones Exposed started trending globally. Fan pages began posting side-by-side clips comparing Jim's claims to actual footage from the early 2000s. In one viral video, a fan contrasted Jim saying, "I discovered jewels" against an old Camron interview where Cam clearly said he introduced jewels to the label, receipts, everywhere. And then came the Harlem Files. An anonymous Twitter account, @HarlemWitness, began dropping screenshots, old photos, and snippets of unreleased interviews from industry veterans, all contradicting Jim's long-standing narratives. One tweet read, "Jim Jones ain't no capo. He was the last one brought in, not the first." The game just forgot. The post included a 2001 studio photo showing Camron jewels, and Freaky Zeke, no Jim in sight. Another post claimed Jim exaggerated his street affiliations, suggesting that his Harlem ties were more symbolic than real. It included an alleged quote from an unnamed OG, "We respect Jimmy for the hustle, but that capo talk? That's branding, not the block." Even NASA's manager, Anthony Sala, weighed in subtly on Twitter, posting, "Legends don't rewrite history. They make it." By now, the picture was clear. Jim Jones wasn't being targeted by one rival or ex-friend. He was being collectively disowned by the same legends who built the world he's still trying to rule. But the worst part? The leaks weren't over. Because, as fans would soon learn, there were recordings, real, unedited audio clips, of industry icons discussing how long they'd been sitting on these stories, and when those recordings surfaced. They didn't just question Jim's legacy, they shattered it by the time fans started whispering about recordings. It wasn't just a rumor anymore, it was a countdown. Hip-hop had seen beefs, diss tracks, and documentaries. But what was about to unfold would blur the line between entertainment and exposure forever. It began on a random Thursday night, when the notorious Twitter page at Harlem Witness, the same account that had been leaking photos and studio receipts for days, suddenly tweeted, "Phase 2, the audio." They said we lying. Let's hear it from their mouths. Attached was a 1-minute clip labeled The Backroom Tapes, 2010 Harlem Dinner. Within minutes, the clip went viral. In it, several familiar voices could be heard, laughing, drinking, reminiscing, but one voice stood out immediately. Camron. He was clearly mid-conversation, saying, "I love Jim, but that man rewrite history every time he gets a mic. He talk like he built the movement when we built him. He forget we had to teach him how to talk to labels." There was a pause. Then another unmistakable voice jumped in. Nas. "Facts. Jimmy's good at selling an image. But half that Harlem legend story? That's branding, not biography." And then, as if to seal the deal, a third voice joined the mix, one fans immediately recognized as Fat Joe. "I tried to tell him years ago, bro." Ain't nothing wrong with being part of something. But don't act like you started the fire when you was just warming your hands next to it. The internet exploded. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. Not because it sounded fake, but because it sounded too real. The background noise, the laughter, the casual tone. It wasn't a set-up interview or a podcast. It was a private conversation. Within an hour, the clip had millions of views. Hip-hop Twitter was on fire. Memes, reaction videos, live spaces, everyone had an opinion. Hashtag The Backroom Tapes shot to #1 trending worldwide. Fans were split into two camps. Those who said it was over. For Jim Jones, that the legends had spoken, and there was no coming back from being publicly denounced by your own mentors. Those who thought it was a coordinated hit, that the legends were jealous of Jim's longevity and social relevance. But while the internet debated, Jim stayed silent, and that silence scared people more than any response could. Then, less than 24 hours later, another audio file dropped, longer, darker, and far more personal. This one was labeled The Bridge Session. It allegedly came from a private roundtable discussion between Nas, 50 Cent, Camron, and Fat Joe, recorded sometime in early 2021. The context: a secret industry conversation about credibility in New York hip-hop. The clip opened with Nas saying, "We built this city on truth, man. You can't have dudes faking street stories and calling themselves kings." Then came 50 Cent's voice, unmistakable, direct, almost amused. Jimmy got lucky. He played loyal soldier until he saw the brand open. But loyalty don't mean leadership. He took Cam's formula and ran with it. Cam chimed in, laughing bitterly. "He ain't even asked permission, bro. He just started moving like I was the sidekick. I don't hate him, I just hate the revision." Fat Joe closed it off with a tone that sounded like a warning. If the streets ever find out what really happened with that money, it's gonna get ugly. That one sentence, that money, became the internet's obsession. What money? Fans began digging through old interviews, label reports, and court filings. Within hours, they uncovered a lawsuit from years ago involving a failed Dipset reunion concert and a missing $250,000 in appearance fees that were allegedly misallocated. Jim had been named in the documents. But the case was quietly settled now, with Fat Joe's comment resurfacing. Fans were convinced the missing money was the real story behind the legends. Sudden outrage, but just as theories reached a fever pitch, a third leak dropped, and this one was nuclear. A full-length recording surfaced titled Club 40 Call February 2022. It began with 50 Cent talking to someone on speakerphone. Someone who, based on voice analysis, was Jim Jones himself. 50 Cent, "You out here telling people you introduced me to tequila. You serious? Jim, man, you know how media twists things? I said we connected back then, that's all." 50, "Nah, you said it like you orchestrated it. Like I owe you something? You rewriting my history now too?" Jim Camron Fifth. You know how the internet works. I just tell stories that inspire people. 50. You inspire Cap. That last line, "You inspire Cap," was instantly immortalized. Within an hour, it was a viral sound on TikTok, with creators remixing it into skits, memes, and parodies. It wasn't just humiliation, it was mimetic destruction. Jim's name became synonymous. With fabrication, he finally broke his silence on Instagram Live. Visibly angry, but trying to stay composed. Y'all running with fake clips, edited audios, AI voices. You think legends gotta sit in a room and gossip about me? Come on, I'm from Harlem. We don't do jealousy, we do elevation. But the damage was done. Cam's single quotes Ron quickly responded, on "It is what it is," laughing while sipping coffee. He said, I did it. Nah, bro. The only thing artificial is your stories. Even 50 piled on. Reposting Jim's live with the caption, "You can't fix it now, Jimmy. Too many witnesses." Then, the twist no one saw coming. A leaked text message thread allegedly between Camron and Jim surfaced online.com. "You should have called me before this blew up, Jim. I didn't think they'd all turn on me. I thought Nas was cool. Cam, you brought this on yourself." Real never gotta explain real. It was devastating. Even if the texts were fake, they felt real, raw, emotional. Final dot by now, Jim wasn't just fighting rumors. He was fighting a narrative written by the very legends who had defined New York hip-hop. Every platform turned it into a documentary overnight. YouTube flooded with videos titled Jim Jones, The Fall of the Capo, and Harlem's Greatest Lie. Twitter threads connected dots between every claim ever made about his career. From his role in Dipset to his alleged involvement in Old Street Cruise. And that's when the first twist hit. Camron went live. Instead of gloating, he looked somber. He started by saying, "Look, this is not about tearing anyone down. But when you play with truth, you lose trust. And once the streets stop trusting you, you done." But then, he dropped a bomb that froze the internet cold. "I wasn't even the one who leaked them tapes." Silence. He leaned closer to the camera. Ask yourself who benefits when Harlem beefs with Queens. When legends fight each other online, when clicks go up and culture goes down. That's who leaked it. Fans flooded the comments. Who's he talking about? Is he blaming the industry? Did 50 orchestrate the whole thing? But before anyone could figure it out, Cam ended the live abruptly with one final sentence. "There's a bigger hand behind this. You'll see soon enough." That's when fans realized this wasn't just about Jim lying. It was about who wanted those lies exposed. Because if Cam was right, someone had orchestrated an entire digital takedown using real legends, real receipts, and years of built-up tension, just to destroy one man's legacy. The question now wasn't if Jim Jones lied, it was why someone waited this long to prove it, after weeks of subtle jabs, cryptic interviews, and leaked recordings. The story around Jim Jones took a violent turn, not in the streets, but in the industry. This wasn't about petty clout anymore. It had evolved into a massive public takedown that felt almost too coordinated to be organic. When Nas, 50 Cent, Camron, and Jadakiss all started firing off in the same 72-hour window, fans realized something big was happening behind the scenes. This wasn't coincidence. This was orchestration. And whoever was pulling the strings wanted Jim Jones finished. The real escalation began when an unreleased Hot 97 segment leaked online. A 40-minute conversation between DJ Funk Flex, Nas, and Camron that had allegedly been too spicy to air live. The clip hit Reddit first, posted by a mysterious account called @Queens2 Harlem Truth, and within minutes, it spread everywhere. The leaked audio opened with Flex asking Nas directly, "Yo, you've been calling out fake narratives. You saying Jim's one of those? Nass's voice was calm but cutting. Let me put it this way. Truth don't need PR. If you telling your story every week, it's probably not your story to tell. Then Camron jumped in. His tone sharper than ever. I love Jim, but he'd been rewriting history since he got Wi-Fi. Every time I log on, I see a new version of the Dipset story. Bro, we was there, he wasn't calling the shots like that. Fans were stunned. This wasn't petty gossip. This was Camron confirming what everyone had been whispering for years. The conversation continued, with Nass adding, "We built this culture off authenticity. You can't keep using Harlem's name like a trademark. If you didn't live it, stop claiming it." Then Funk Flex, never one to stay quiet, asked the question that cracked everything open. You saying Jimmy wasn't who he said he was? A pause. Then Cam sighed. Man, all I'm saying is, if receipts drop, a lot of people gonna start deleting old interviews. That was the line that detonated hip-hop Twitter. Within an hour, hashtag receipts drop and hashtag Jim Jones exposed were trending globally, and then the receipts did drop. An anonymous blog called The Culture Ledger published a massive expose titled The Capo Myth, The Real Architects of Dipset. It included alleged documents, studio session notes, and old label memos that contradicted almost every major story Jim had ever told about his role in Dipset's rise. One memo from 2003 showed Camron listed as the sole producer and creative director for Diplomatic Immunity, despite Jim's repeated claims that he co-ran the project. Another email thread between ROCFLA Records execs discussed a branding deal that Jim later took credit for as his own negotiation. But the most damning piece was an old recording contract showing Jim signed after Dipset's first to major. Deals were already finalized, meaning he didn't found the empire, he joined it. The internet went ballistic. On Twitter, Nass fans quoted his line, "Truth don't need PR," while Camron supporters flooded timelines with the phrase, "He joined the wave, he didn't make it." Even 50 Cent joined in again, posting a picture of Jim from the early 2000s with the caption, "He was the intern in a boss suit." Hashtag facts over feelings. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source, Joel Santana, in a viral Instagram live. Joel's usually quiet about Dipset drama broke his silence. He said, "I got love for Jimmy, always will. But truth be told, a lot of things y'all hearing now, they not lies. I was there. I watched how certain stories got flipped over time. Cam ain't lying. Some of them legends tired of watching history get rebranded." That confession broke the internet. Fans flooded Jules's live with messages like, "Finally someone confirmed it. And this, the Dipset tell-all we needed." Meanwhile, Jim Jones stayed eerily quiet, for someone known to go live at the first sign of smoke. His silence was deafening. That silence broke a week later, in the form of a 10-minute Instagram rant that only made things worse. Jim appeared visibly angry, pacing back and forth in his penthouse, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He started by saying, "Everybody wanna rewrite my life like they was in the room. Nass, respect to the legend, but you wasn't there." 50. You've been talking for years, Cam. You sound like you need me to stay relevant again. Then his tone shifted. He pointed at the camera. "Let me tell you something. I'm Harlem. I been Harlem. Ain't nobody validate that for me. I ain't gotta beg no legend for approval. They mad 'cause I'm still outside and they not. The rant went viral instantly, racking up over 3 million views in 2 hours. Fans were torn. Half said Jim finally stood up for himself. The other half said he sounded cornered. But while Jim was busy defending himself, another bomb was ticking in the background. A new leak surfaced on TikTok. An unreleased phone call, allegedly between 50 Cent and Fat Joe. The audio was grainy, but the voices were unmistakable. Place 50 Cent. I told Nas to fall back. Let the people finish him themselves. Fat Joe. You sure you want to do that? Man, this feel like we kicking a man while he down. A 50 Cent, he ain't down. He just finally in the light. That short clip, just 20 seconds, sent shockwaves through the community. Was this all part of 50 Cent's master plan? Had he orchestrated a slow-burn humiliation campaign to remind the industry who really held the power? Fans began calling it the 50 effect. Old interviews resurfaced where 50 bragged about being able to turn narratives with one post. The pieces started fitting together. Nas sparked the conversation. Cam confirmed it, and 50 amplified it, all while Jim walked right into the fire. Then, in a twist that no one expected and unreleased, Nas track leaked, titled Paper Saints. The song was allegedly recorded during the King's Disease 3 sessions, but never released. And it contained a line that hit like a bullet. Capo without a cause. Fakin' for applause. Harlem still holy. But he sold us 4 blocks. It was subtle, poetic, but unmistakable. Nas had immortalized Jim's downfall in verse. And just when fans thought the story couldn't get any wilder, a final message dropped from none other than Camron himself. On his show, It Is What It Is. Cam stared straight into the camera and said, "You see what happens when lies get comfortable? The truth don't need a rollout. It just shows up and does its job." Then he added, with a smirk, "And the crazy part is, the next leak ain't even about Jimmy. It's about the people who helped him lie." The studio went silent. Viewers immediately flooded the chat. What does he mean? Who helped him lie? Is he talking about labels or legends? But Cam didn't clarify. He leaned back, smiled, and said, "Harlem been watching. We know exactly who's next." And with that, he ended the broadcast, leaving fans with one haunting realization. This wasn't just about exposing Jim Jones. This was phase 1 of something much bigger. Something designed to pull the curtain back on the entire industry. The managers, execs, and friends who'd been crafting fake legacies for years. And if Camron's final words were true, Jim Jones was just the beginning. When the smoke from the backroom tapes and the unreleased Nas line began to settle, it was clear that hip-hop wasn't just reacting, it was restructuring. The game itself was in shock. For decades, Jim Jones had managed to reinvent himself, survive every diss, every internal feud, every media storm. But this time, something felt different. The attack wasn't coming from outsiders. It was coming from the pillars of the culture. Men who had shaped New York's golden era and were now pulling the plug on one of their own. Within hours of Camron's cryptic Phase 1 warning, the internet went into investigative overdrive. TikTok theorists broke down every frame of It Is What It Is, claiming to find coded messages in Cam's body language. Twitter threads spun conspiracy webs linking record label executives, podcast hosts, and social media managers to an industry-wide purge of manufactured images. On the Joe Budden podcast, Joe himself summed it up perfectly. "What y'all watching ain't beef, it's accountability." The legends are tired of the rewrites. This, the real verses. Fans split into factions. The reactions divided the hip-hop world like a fault line. Team legends, made up of Nas, 50 Cent, and Cam loyalists, celebrated what they called the return of realness. They filled timelines with quotes like "truth aged better than clout," and "you can't brand authenticity." They believed Jim had finally been exposed as the opportunist many had long suspected he was. One viral comment under a 50 Cent post read, "He built his whole legacy on borrowed credibility." The real ones just reclaimed what's theirs. Meanwhile, #Team Capo Jim's defenders pushed back hard. They argued that the so-called legends were jealous, washed, and desperate for relevance. They pointed out that Jim was still charting songs, collaborating with younger artists, and staying visible while the others were stuck in nostalgia. A fan wrote on Instagram, "The legends got old. Jim adapted." That's not lying. That's survival. The divide wasn't just among fans. It ran through the industry itself. Younger artists like A Boogie, Fiville Foreign, and Ice Spice posted subtle nods to Jim's side, praising his hustler's consistency and calling him a pioneer of self-branding. They saw him as a blueprint, someone who turned independence into identity. But older icons, those who'd come up during the 90s and early 2000s, began echoing NASA's sentiment that the stories got too polished. Fat Joe doubled down on his earlier comments in a radio interview. "Look, Jimmy's talented, no doubt. But there's a difference between evolving and erasing the people who helped you get there." Oh, social media meltdown. Every major outlet picked a side. The Breakfast Club hosted a fiery debate that nearly turned into a shouting match between DJ Envy and Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne defended Jim, saying, "If everyone's lying, then why the culture still rock with him? You can't fake 20 years of respect." Envy shot back, "Respect or marketing? They different." That clip alone got over 10 million views on YouTube in 24 hours. Even Drink Champs jumped into the fire. NORE, clearly uncomfortable, tried to walk the line but couldn't resist dropping one grenade of his own. There's truth in what Nas said. But if we start pulling everyone's receipts, ain't nobody safe. You sure y'all ready for that energy? Industry fallout, then came the money hit. Two major brands quietly paused their partnerships with Jim. One sneaker company removed his name from a campaign that had been filmed just weeks before. A clothing collab dropped off the website overnight, replaced with a vague statement about reevaluating commitments. Behind the scenes, sources whispered about something bigger. A wave of executives suddenly distancing themselves from Jim after the leaks. PR managers were allegedly scrubbing old press releases, fact-checking claims that had stood unchallenged for years. It wasn't just a reputation crisis anymore. It was an industry cleanup. And the worst part? Even Harlem started turning cold, local OGs who'd once championed. Jim began posting cryptic messages about truth always coming full circle. One Harlem community figure posted on Facebook, "He represented us well for a minute. But when you mix fiction with Harlem, Harlem eventually spits you out." Still, some stood firm in defense. Rapper Dave East posted a photo of him, and Jim captioned, "Harlem Unity. Don't let the outsiders write our story." That post ignited a whole new conversation. Outsiders? Who were they? Was this really about Jim Jones? Or was it the start of a coordinated campaign to destabilize Harlem's influence in hip-hop? Because even as fans argued about loyalty and lies, one eerie pattern emerged. Every single voice going against Jim came from outside Harlem. Queens, Bronx, Yonkers, all firing shots toward one borough. Camron had hinted at it already. Ask yourself who benefits when Harlem beefs with Queens. The deeper fans looked. The stranger it got, one investigative thread claimed that the same PR firm handling 50 Cent's recent media ventures had been quietly pushing content about Jim Jones. Controversy to blogs and YouTube gossip channels weeks before the first leaks even appeared. Another suggested that a streaming network had bankrolled a documentary in progress about New York's manufactured rap icons with Jim as the rumored centerpiece. Suddenly, the narrative shifted again. Was Jim being exposed or targeted? Even NASA's longtime producer Hit Boy tried to clarify the situation on Twitter, writing, "The truth is powerful. But not everyone using it got pure motives. That tweet alone sparked over 30,000 comments, because at this point, no one knew who was telling the truth. Not Jim, not the legends, not the leakers. Everyone had evidence. Everyone had audio. Everyone had something to gain. Documentary chaos and the fan war days later. NETFLIX's documentary division reportedly reached out to multiple sources about a potential limited series, titled Capo, The Rise and Rewrite of Jim Jones. The project leaked before it was confirmed, but just the rumor was enough to send the internet spiraling. The phrase, "rise and rewrite," became shorthand for what everyone was witnessing, not just one man's fall, but a movement exposing how hip-hop's biggest names might have built legacies on carefully rewritten pasts. Meanwhile, Camron posted a chilling teaser for his next episode of It Is What It Is. The thumbnail showed a stack of cassette tapes labeled Harlem vs. Everyone, the final tape. The caption simply read, "We just getting started." And that's when the real panic began. Because if this was just phase one, as Cam said, if Harlem's secrets were only the beginning, then no one, not even the legends who started this, was safe from what came next. The entire industry was holding its breath, waiting for the next drop, wondering if exposing Jim Jones had accidentally opened the floodgates for something much, much bigger. Because if Cam's tapes were real, then the next voice to be exposed might not be Jim's. It might be theirs. For a few days, the internet went quiet. That eerie silence that always happens before another explosion. Jim Jones had been publicly humiliated, stripped of credibility by some of the biggest voices in hip-hop, and branded as Harlem's fallen son. But then, in classic New York fashion, the story flipped again, because when Camron dropped his teaser for Harlem vs. Everyone, the final tape, no one was ready for what came next. At exactly midnight on Friday, the episode went live. The first 10 minutes were calm, even reflective. Camron sat in his studio, sipping coffee, talking about legacy and truth. He replayed clips from the previous week's NASA's comments, 50's posts, Jules's confession, Jim's rants, building a timeline of chaos that had consumed the culture. Then he leaned forward and said something that froze the chat. "They wanted y'all to believe we was exposing Jimmy. Nah, we was exposing them." The screen cut to black. Then came static, and when the footage returned, it showed a dark office, stacks of CDs, dusty contracts, old studio gear. Cam's voice narrated over it. "Everything you've been watching was planned. Every post, every leak, every so-called legend statement. It wasn't about Harlem. It was about control." Then, Cam started playing unseen footage, meetings between label executives, PR consultants, and digital marketing firms. The clips were grainy, but clear enough to identify faces. Exec, "If we can reignite old beefs, it drives engagement. Nostalgia plus controversy equals numbers. Consultant, who's the target? Exec, start with Harlem. It's emotional real estate. People love it and love to hate it. Jim's loud, polarizing, easy to spin." The camera panned to a whiteboard with 3 words written in red marker. Phase 1, Jim Jones. The live chat exploded. Fans typed in all caps, "This is crazy." They staged IT. Who leaked this footage? Cam kept narrating, his voice steady, serious. They used legends like pawns, paid platforms to run narratives, and they used our pride against us. He revealed email screenshots from a marketing firm showing coordinated posts between high-profile media pages, ones that happened to share the same anti-Jim content at the exact same times. The subject line read, "Campaign Rollout, Authenticity Week." The revelation was explosive. Hip-hop's truth crusade wasn't organic, it was manufactured. Nace's comment? Allegedly clipped from a longer interview where he never mentioned Harlem. 50 Cent's IG caption. A brand-sponsored post that conveniently aligned with a media campaign. Even the leaked audio clips had metadata that traced back to a social media contractor. Working for a major streaming platform, Cam dropped the mic, figuratively and literally. He stood up and looked straight at the camera. Y'all got played. And we all helped them do it. The silence that followed felt heavier than any diss track. Within minutes, industry insiders were panicking. PR agencies began mass deleting tweets. Blogs that had pushed the Jim Jones lie story started removing posts. And Nace's management issued a vague statement. Recent leaks have been heavily manipulated for online engagement. Context matters. But the story didn't stop there, because hours after Cam's reveal, 50 Cent responded, and his response sent chills down everyone's spine. He posted a black screen on Instagram with a voiceover of his own. Cam think he found the truth. Nah, he found the surface. Keep digging, boy. Then he added a caption, "There's a reason they called it Phase 1. Fans lost it," was 50 admitting to the setup. Or mocking it. Or hinting there was something bigger coming, something beyond even Cam's expose. That's when another strange thing happened. A private Google Drive link began circulating in fan group chats and Discord servers. The file title, Phase TWO Blueprint. Inside, there was a single PDF minus 11 pages long. It appeared to be an internal strategy document from the same PR firm Cam had exposed. But this one listed multiple artists, not just Jim. Each name had a note beside it. Capo Project, complete Q1 Queens narrative, pending Q2. South Resurgence rollout Q3 legacy dispute. Confidential, the document's footer read. Sponsored in partnership with Streamworld Media Group. In other words, this wasn't about one rapper being exposed. It was about manufacturing drama across hip-hop, one legend at a time. The chat rooms exploded again. Fans speculated that Nas, 50, and Cam weren't enemies at all. They were just the first players in a massive entertainment chess game. That the legend unity wasn't organic truth, but orchestrated distraction. Even more chilling. The final page of the PDF had a section titled Phase 2 Target. TBD Harlem Response, meaning someone was already working on the next move. By morning, the link had been scrubbed from the internet. DMCA takedowns everywhere. Accounts suspended, entire Reddit threads erased, but not before screenshots circulated. Not before whispers spread that the next Harlem response was already in motion, and that Jim wasn't the only one being set up. Hours later, an anonymous post appeared on X, written from an account with 0 followers, but verified instantly. The post read, "They wanted Harlem quiet. But Harlem don't die. New drops coming." 11/11s, the post vanished 10 minutes later. No one knew who wrote it, Jim Cam, or someone else entirely. All anyone knew was that November 11th was coming, and whatever Phase 2 was, it wasn't going to expose lies. It was going to expose who built them, because this wasn't just a war for reputation anymore. It was a war for the narrative itself, and in the end, the truth might not save anyone, it might burn them all. This isn't just another hip-hop story. This is a revolution. For years, we've watched the culture bend under the weight of clicks, brands, and manipulation. But now, the mask is finally slipping. The Jim Jones scandal has pulled back the curtain on something way bigger, an entire machine that profits off conflict, controls narratives, and decides who gets to be a legend and who gets left behind. So, what do you think? Was Jim really the liar the legends made him out to be? Or was he the first victim of a system designed to pit artists against each other for views? And what about Camron's revelation? Was he saving Harlem, or just exposing the tip of a much deeper conspiracy that even he can't control? Drop your theories in the comments below, because this story isn't done yet. If Phase 1 was about Harlem's fall, Phase 2 might just reveal who's been building the tower all along. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay locked in, because when November 11th hits, we'll be right here, breaking down every file, every voice, and every truth they don't want you to hear. And remember, in the game of hip-hop, the truth doesn't set you free. It changes the whole map. It changes the whole map.